Funko Pops! Beady-eyed bobbleheads based on pretty much every piece of media under the sun. Either you love them because you can get detailed matching figures of all your fandoms, or you hate them because they've become a full-on infestation at game stores. This is just the Star Wars section of my local V-Stock. There are 4 full racks of them somewhere behind me. But in recent years, Funko's business model of making merch on every obscure niche character they could find has blown up in the company's face, as headlines swirl of them not expecting to survive another year and having to bury the unsold inventory alongside the ET cartridges. So in 2024, Funko followed Blackwater's example and tried to turn things around with a video game tie-in to their product, Funko Fusion. And its title screen with a pile of crap and 0 Funko products. Funko Fusion is a giant crossover of different franchises that Funko has adapted. We could have Star Wars, Star Trek, Marvel, DC, Nintendo, Sonic the Hedgehog, Transformers, Yu-Gi-Oh! All together under one roof. The sky's the limit on massive properties that could come together in this game. And when you start, you pick from one of the 7 main properties to get started. Your choices are Jurassic World Dominion, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, Umbrella Academy, Masters of the Universe, Hot Fuzz, The Thing, and Battlestar Galactica. Huh. So they shopped in the bargain lane of licenses. I mean, wow, what a motley crew of properties we've got here. A reboot trilogy where the game focuses on the most reviled entry, a cult nerd film that bombed, a streaming series I've never seen discussed, a 40-year-old cartoon that's lived mainly through memes, a nerd series that died a full-on decade ago, a hardcore psychological body horror in a game for children, and Hot Fuzz! Who in the actual hell has talked about Hot Fuzz for the last 18 years? What did that license run you, 30 cents? And just from the roll call, we can already ask one fundamental question. Who was this game made for? This is a game for children, so why is it built from R-rated properties and licenses that have been dead longer than the kids have been alive? The featured properties feel more targeted at hardcore nerds in their 40s who'd probably rather play a deeper game like Doom or Elden Ring. Like, I know that Fortnite has pushed us into an era where anything can cross over with anything, but is there a single person on Earth who's ever gone, man, I want to fight Cylons as Gnolls? Who is Gnolls? Exactly! Alright, I decided to go with Jurassic World, and I'm told to go upstairs, and I run into Foxo! Who is Foxo? I fight some purple ghosts, and I talk to this manager named Freddy. A zombie called Eddie shows up and kills Foxo by stripping him to the bones. Freddy summons a flying power armor to fight Eddie. Freddy gets half zombified, and Eddie turns into a giant Foxo zombie, which you fight by gathering plasma to summon a giant Mecha Freddy. I have no idea what's going on. I didn't think Funko Pops had such a deep lore, much less that you'd be thrown ass first into the deep end of it. Basically, this place is the Funko factory that connects to every property they've merchandised, and it's all controlled by Freddy's magic crown. The crown breaks, and the pieces fly into the various universes, so you have to go to each Wonder World to fight Eddie, retrieve the crowns, and save the multiverse. Yes, the franchise areas are called Wonder Worlds, which is just a cursed term in gaming, apparently. Funny enough, Balan Wonderworld, one of the few properties that Funko won't touch. Naturally, you go to each world and you spend 5 levels playing through that universe's story, a simple concept that they managed to screw up. The Jurassic World levels begin with that stupid-ass clone girl being abducted by secret agents, so you have to try and rescue her in the overrun Jurassic World Park. They took half the plot of the 3rd movie and set it during the 2nd half of the 1st movie. Figure that one out. The first Jurassic World level, you have to navigate the park and defeat 4 Dilophosaurs. Sounds simple enough, except for one problem. This is a large, open level. There is no signposting, no linear path, no waypoints, no map, no hints. There is nothing to help you with navigation in any remote fashion. They dump your ass into an open field, send you on a completely directionless scavenger hunt, and leave it entirely on your own to figure it out. You literally just wander around until you trip over one of your objectives by accident. And so we finally get to the actual genre of this turd. It's not a beat-em-up or a shooter game, it's the ever-despised where the fuck do I go kind of game. The kind where you spend hours wandering around hopelessly lost and growling, where the fuck do I go? Your patience shot as you waste your precious time on Earth hopelessly dragging yourself across the same forsaken spit of land a fifth time in a desperate hope that this will be the time you spot whatever it is you're missing. It's like the devs knew that someone will have a walkthrough on YouTube before launch day is over, so they don't need to worry about coherent level design. I actually got prompted to use the PlayStation 5's Game Help feature for this mess. I didn't even know that was a thing! In between walking to Kingdom Come, you're fighting enemies. Each character has a melee attack and a ranged weapon with infinite ammo. There's not really such a thing as cover, the dodge roll is of dubious usefulness, and the enemies don't drop health. As such, it's probably wise to play with infinite lives. And every time you die, you drop your entire inventory and have to drag yourself back to a box that swaps characters to revive yourself, then drag yourself back if you want all your stuff back. Even death involves massive backtracking! You can find items in the forms of weapons that don't seem much stronger than default combat, and sodas that give you temporary buffs. But they don't explain anywhere in the entire frickin' game what a single one of the items actually does! So I just stocked up on health potions and called it a day. You can switch between a roster of characters that all play almost exactly the same, and the levels include hidden collectibles, one of which requires finishing a level with enough money, which you get by blowing up every object you can find to make little bits of cash spill out of everything. Yeah, this should all look very, very familiar to you if you've been around the block. The Lego block! Funko Fusion's gameplay is pulled point for point from the early Lego games. Each Funko plays like if Lego Star Wars made every character ranged and a Jedi at the same time. They do the same tell the story with no dialogue thing. They try to steal the slapstick comedy. They even steal the aerial shockwave attack one for one with every character. Except I stress that they stole from the early Lego games because in the last 2 decades, LEGO has seriously upped their game. They got voice acting, deeper gameplay mechanics, open world exploration, flight. Even the first games had vehicle levels and unlockable extras. Goofy cheats like turning General Grievous into the ultimate cleaning droid. And even at the franchise's most primitive, LEGO had comprehensible levels that didn't take a walkthrough or make you want to die. Plus, Legos have a fun and engrossing visual aesthetic that actively plays into the gameplay mechanics, while Funko's art direction for the environments is glossy plastic crap. Funko Fusion's pitting itself against a game from 2005, and it's losing! And what's really gonna bake your noodle is that Funko Fusion's developer, 1010 Games, was made out of Lego game developers. It was co-founded by the creative director of Lego Dimensions. How in the hell do you copy your own homework and then fundamentally get every single thing catastrophically wrong? The second Jurassic World level, you're trying to track down 4 raptors and take them to a helipad. This level's more navigable. The only major problem is the raptors will get attacked by floods of enemies, and you have to spend a ton of your own health while being held motionless to revive them. Different characters will also have mildly different weapons. Chris Pratt has a rifle, Bryce Dallas Howard has a machine gun, and this dude from Dominion has a shotgun. And I learned very quickly that the shotguns barely hit jack shit. But you still run smack into another of the game's problems, the items. Each franchise has its own item that's heavily used to solve puzzles, and in Jurassic World, that item is a battery. You'll come across some barrier in the environment that requires a battery to operate, so you backtrack to the nearest item dispenser, which are not that common, and it spits out a battery. But you eventually figure out that the dispenser only spits out dead batteries, so you also have to backtrack to some random unmarked stand that will charge your battery before you can lug the battery to the obstacle, meaning the entire puzzle is just 2 separate backtracking roadblocks before you can move on. And to even unlock the shittin' battery, you have to track down 3 blue chests and drag each of their individual keys to an item dispenser. I swear this game's entire design philosophy is just to pad out every single basic task with pointless backtracking and busy work. This might as well be Fetch Quest, the game. Why is the nearest dispenser locked inside a building where I can't reach it? Oh, and I ran into a door that I can't cross because I don't have this. I have no idea who that is. That's the problem with Funko Pops. If you don't already know who it is, you will never know who it is. In the third Jurassic World stage, you fight a Gigantosaurus. This is where the shotguns come in handy because the damn boss's weak spots are so awkwardly placed that they're hard to hit. But the fight eventually becomes a completely unmanageable fustercluck because the game will have 4 enemies hounding you at all times, each of them immediately respawning when downed, and the boss's weak point is a bit on his underside that he will constantly cover up. And geez, cartoon or not, there sure is a lot of violence and gore in this children's game, isn't there? As you wear down the Gigantosaurus, its bones and bloody guts become visible. You had horrific maiming and zombification of Funko's mascots in the opening, and if you take a bit of fire damage, your character's head permanently burns down to an empty skull. Again, who the hell was this made for? Do you want to play for kids, or do you want to traumatize those damn kids? Although there is one thing about Funko Fusion that I can cite as an unmitigated positive. Jurassic World's stupid-ass clone girl gets hurled into a pile of shit. Good! 4th level's unremarkable. You escort Clone Girl in a sphere by sticking close to her or else the sphere doesn't move. Not that I'm complaining, but the devs don't know the point of an escort mission. The enemies ignore your escort to focus on you. Hold on. Are those ninjas? Why in the actual hell do you fight ninjas in Jurassic World? Do they even watch those damn movies? Clone Girl gets evacuated by, okay, I've seen the Jurassic World films and I have no idea who that is. And then you fight Eddie's big possessed Indominus Rex form, flanked by tons of enemies and snipers. The way these boss fights work is you shoot the boss's weak points, collect the purple goop that spills out, and dump the goop into a receptacle to form a big construct that destroys the boss for you. In this level, you form a giant T-Rex. Kinda strange that you don't get to defeat the boss yourself, but I guess that shilling jumbo Funkos as the answer to all life's problems tracks for this game's priorities. Every time you get a world crown, you have to go to the factory to get a hunk of Eddie's backstory. The only reason you'll care is that Eddie is voiced by Clancy Brown. Because if you're only going to cast one voice actor across the entire game, you might as well make it Clancy Brown. Alright, next let's try Masters of the Universe. This story should be more straightforward. Eddie possesses Skeletor and attacks Castle Grayskull. Typical Tuesday. Okay, the first level you have to defend 4 towers, which is easy since you can heal them. The item for these levels is a portal, where you stand next to one portal, look at the one you want to link to, and press triangle, even though triangle is also used to pick up and move the portals, which seems like terrible planning. And each level you have to find and activate some special platform for Prince Adam to turn into He-Man, because apparently he can't actually use the power unless he does so on a magic runway.
By the power of Grayskull!
Wow, can't tell that audio's 40 years old. Level 2, on the other hand, is a massive convoluted puzzle stage that's more annoying than balls itch. You need to track down 4 pieces of He-Man's special platform to transform. You can't tell where you're supposed to go since the portals need to be activated. You activate them by shooting crystals that can only be seen or hit from one specific unmarked spot. You wind up swimming in so many portals you can barely keep track of what goes where. Portals sometimes just don't work for no clear reason. Because the same button uses or picks up portals, you can barely move around or use them. Half the level is inaccessible without a bounce pad, which, okay, my bad, I forgot you even have those. And one chunk of platform is hidden behind a timed switch puzzle that takes utterly maddening precision with the portals to work. Yeah, Miles bought a copy of Funko Fusion planning to play it alongside me. This was his second level, and then he quit. But then the third level, you just fight some of the show's minions and then portal whenever you hit a dead end. Like we suddenly remembered that this is a game for children. I really don't know why they give you multiple characters for these levels when you need He-Man to clear golden obstacles, and he has devastating melee attacks and a massive health pool. Changing to a different character is like having Superman available and selecting Arm Fall Off Boy. You rescue the sorceress and have to escort her looking like she's passed out drunk in the sled. You have to clear several obstacles for the sled, and of course this means going on scavenger hunts for portals and for the crystals that operate those portals, to the point a single wall takes 3 portal paths to solve. And you need Beastman to shoot some of the crystals for you, if the damn game will have him do it, and some dumbass positioned one of these portals to where you can get stuck in a wall. Oh, and because the game will only let you spawn a few portals per level, you're gonna wind up having to backtrack through the stage and painstakingly drag portals back with you, or else later puzzles become impossible. Why is every single little task in the game padded with as much busy work as possible? You fight Skeletor and you have to lug a single battery around through portals to operate lightning rods, and the game crashed. Just lovely. Each level has 7 silver crowns that can be collected by completing little side quests. Some of them are hidden, some take winning a brief combat encounter, and one is for destroying a set of collectibles that changes by the level and can be maddening to spot! And if you get 12 of a world's crowns, you unlock a bonus character. So now I can play as Skeletor. And since, unlike the LEGO games, they don't make you play a story mode first to get the intended narrative experience, I jumped right into John Carpenter's The Thing, and I underwent the intense, isolated, paranoia-fueled, gruesome horror as a cartoon ambiguously gay skeleton wizard.
You fetid furry fool, how dare you send me to the Arctic? Do you have any idea how little protection from the elements a bear skull gets you? If I hadn't the poles, I'd be freezing them off!
The Thing starts off with getting attacked by rampaging Norwegians, which very decisively does not happen in the film, almost like it was a dumb idea to adapt The Thing into a beat-em-up children's game. This first level, you have to round up the group's dogs while fighting the Norwegians. There's just one problem. This level is freaking huge! So you spend a small eternity running all over creation trying to figure out where the damn dogs are hiding, then running around looking for the items that you need to reach them. The special items for the Thing levels are gas cans, which you use to thaw out frozen objects and to melt red plastic. So again, the game's idea of a puzzle is run to an item dispenser and back. And one of the dogs you have to free by blowing up a gas can right next to its frozen pole, so the only way to win the stage is to light the dog on fire.
You incompetent baboon, even I'm not evil enough to ignite innocent canines. Cats maybe, but if you got mauled by a 13-foot green pussy, you'd consider it too!
This is like the 3rd or 4th stage where I've gotten lost and had to wander in massive circles. I hate this freaking game, man. I did find out there's a button to add your own custom marker to help with navigation. Come to find out that marker automatically disappears after about 30 seconds, making the whole feature completely worthless! And after all that effort rounding up these dogs, the next level has all of them turned into Monster Hound minions for a dog monster. This game is great for children. You fight this thing in multiple phases. You have to keep grabbing gas cans to damage it. It keeps endlessly respawning enemies to pester you while you're mostly helpless lugging around items. And eventually it turns into that. This kid's game monster is attacking you with a giant dick!
You call that intimidating? I call it Saturday night!
There comes a point in this fight where the thing just stops taking damage. You're told to light it on fire, but I lug in gas can after gas can and nothing happens. This is about the point in the film where McCready asks for a flamethrower, so I figure I have to scavenge the level looking for a weapon that'll damage the boss. Yeah, I turned the entire map upside down and I found nothing. It turns out that, in order to kill this boss, you have to make use of a mechanic that is never explained anywhere in the entire game. I asked Miles, he had no idea this was a thing. You ready? Certain characters have special abilities. If you hold down the dodge button, a character might have a unique power that goes off, like Skeletor, being someone you need to specially unlock, can turn invisible. If you go to the character selection menu, you can look up whether characters have special powers by selecting a little hidden tab off to the side where the game never informs you of its existence. And by stumbling across this system on my own, I discover by pure accident that Childs has a flamethrower, meaning he is the only character in the game that can defeat this boss, and the game tells you none of this! For some reason, they adapt the team visiting the Norwegian base as finding a map and following a path of flares in the snow. Flares that immediately led me to an empty building, because they have 2 sets of flares for some reason. And of course, the Norwegian base is a set of tedious scavenger hunts, only now they have text blocks that glitch and never go away so that you can barely see what you're doing. This whole time you're being hounded by corrupted Norwegians that beat the shit out of you by spitting acid from a huge distance, really setting skewed expectations if this is your first exposure to the thing. Blair goes nuts and starts hucking firebombs around the base, though. You chase him around shooting tanks out of his hands over and over and over again, all while the game glosses over or completely skips the actual scenes from the movie. Game for children, everyone. Eventually, you're told to go to Blair's lair with no clue of what that is. You're supposed to go to the level's basement, which has been a dead end for the entire rest of this world. For the Eddie hybrid boss, you just lug tons of gas cans around by constantly dragging your ass back to a dispenser, burning tentacles, and then the floorboards. But not these floorboards, stupid! These other floorboards that weren't there a minute ago! And guess what giant character the game spawns to kill the thing? Just go on and guess if you've seen the movie. Or even if you haven't, just because you'll never get it. It spawns this coat with a glowing face that was on the thing's original movie poster, but never actually appears in the film itself. You get saved by Funko-made merch of a character that doesn't exist. And they wonder why they're going out of business. I went for Battlestar Galactica next. Eddie possesses some alien leader dude who sends an army of robots called Cylons to invade the Earth. And for some reason, your focus for these levels is not stopping the invasion, it's protecting some random-ass woman and her kid that you found on the street. Yep, I know nothing about Battlestar. I know more about movies that steal from Battlestar. Isn't that right, blast hard cheese? You escort the two to a shuttle that goes to a larger ship, and then you fight off waves of Cylons in the hangar. And then the game soft-locked because one of the Cylons that was supposed to spawn for me to destroy never freaking showed up!
Cretinous contraptions, if I wanted to sit on my ass while nothing happened, I'd watch Dune!
And then we have 2 levels of scavenger hunts in a row as you have to build a robot dog for the stupid kid, not like we have larger priorities, what with the alien invasion and all. And then you have to run around the ship rescuing the damn mom and kid and their damn robot dog again. The gimmick to the Battlestar levels is that the maps are filled with switches that can only be activated with lasers, effectively meaning you have to use Battlestar Galactica characters to play these levels.
Oh, I see how it is. When you want to save the planet from aliens, you ask the handsome Americans with guns, but you want the family pets melted and oh, this is a job for Skeletor!
The gigantic, pulsating pain in the ass is that a lot of the laser switches don't work. You need to track down a crystal that changes the color of your laser to operate them, which means going on another level-wide scavenger hunt in the middle of your bigger level-wide scavenger hunt, trying to find the damn crystal that you need to operate the next switch, and trying to remember where you left certain crystals so you can painstakingly drag them around and reuse them. You also need the world's sentry gun items to set off green switches, which the game isn't the most clear about explaining, and which adds even more backtracking to look for item dispensers. I seriously cannot fathom how anybody finds this entertaining. This would be like if I invited someone to a house they'd never seen, told them to find my keys, and they can't leave until they do. You have no idea the layout of the house or where on God's earth those keys might be, and I charged you $60 and called it entertainment. And the Battlestar boss is probably the hardest in the game. He spawns non-stop enemies. Some enemies have shitloads of health and have to be stunned before they take damage. He shoots constant pillars of fire. Grenades get hucked at you by the dozen every few seconds. And you have to set up crystals and turrets for specific switches to down his shields, and the turrets get destroyed and barely work. The sheer quantity of damage being hurled at your face the entire fight is just obscene. Oh, and you summon a big dog to finish off Eddie because the devs were just obsessed with this thing. Karmic debt from the Thing levels, I guess. Might as well do Umbrella Academy next. Your characters are dumped into a mansion, one of whom wears no shirt with a feather boa. Two of the characters have superpowers that revolve around music. Two time-traveling assassins in big furry masks break in and try to kill you. There's a monkey man who I guess runs the place. Each level is set to a quirky song that plays endlessly until you want to impale both your eardrums. And the big special item for these levels is a gramophone that plays music that jazzes up depressed people to make them do stuff. I'm going to say this as nicely as I can. They make this look like a show made exclusively for Hot Topic merch. Once again, the first level is a big, obnoxious scavenger hunt, and I got lost because a keycard is scattered innocuously among garbage on the floor. And again, you're pretty much forced to play these levels exclusively using Umbrella Academy characters, specifically number 5, who can teleport, and Allison, who can hypnotize people that have text boxes. Except you know how the LEGO games will give you an entire party of characters to switch between, so that any powers that you need are a simple button press away? Yeah, Funko Fusion doesn't do that, so every time you need to switch to a mandatory character, you have to drag yourself back to a character selection box, which is not marked, change to the person you need, backtrack to the obstacle where you got stuck, use their power, and then drag yourself back to the box again to change back. Was there a legal reason to play like shit, or do these devs just hate players? You do an escort mission, 2 characters die and the moon gets blown up, and you're suddenly just in a police station of officers in furry suits doing another scavenger hunt for 4 clues that reveal that time travel exists so you can save your friends. You fight 2 bosses, one by knocking them into a washing machine because quirky, and one by stunning him and then shooting the back of his head as he runs away. The latter of these fights takes forever because you're forced to do this fight as one of the worst characters in the game. Number 5 has crappy stats and a lousy weapon, but they're also the only character that can teleport, meaning you're forced to play these entire levels as someone who sucks. In fact, number 5 sucks so hard that they added 2 free DLC characters that can teleport, so you're not forced to use the shit person anymore. So that part they fixed in the last 2 years, but not the part where enemies keep getting stuck in the environment, or the part where enemies with Molotov cocktails will burn each other, or the part where one of the mandatory puzzles kept rejecting a correct answer. They also didn't fix the part where the first thing the Umbrella Academy boss did in our fight was pin me against a wall where I couldn't move and I died without being able to stop it. Even the boss fight is a friggin' scavenger hunt as you run around looking for stars to lug over to slots in the floor, and you defeat the boss with a giant monkey and it ends with a dance party. Like I said, Hot Topic property. 2 worlds left, Scott Pilgrim and Hot Fuzz, and I can't believe I'm saying this, the Scott Pilgrim levels don't entirely suck. The movie's plot is just a series of 7 boss fights, and the levels are actually small and coherently designed so you can tell where to go. The one scavenger hunt is in a confined space where it's easier to find stuff. It's like they finally remembered this was a game made for humans. The puzzles use an amp item that can produce bridges, which is an actual interesting platforming mechanic. There's even the one joke I laughed at all game where you fight Brandon Routh's character, who has powers because he's vegan, and you defeat him by knocking him into buckets of chicken. In the movie, it was fake soy milk, but I'll admit, this is funnier. The only problem with these levels is that they're in Funko Fusion, a slow, clunky piece of crap that plays sluggishly and is bugged out the butt. My first crack at Brandon Routh, he eventually froze up to where the fight wouldn't advance no matter what I did.
Vegan, huh? Well, you are what you eat, and you are a vegetable! If you still had brain activity, you'd be laughing right now.
I restarted the level, skipped the opening cutscene, and I think skipping the cutscene broke the game's scripting because this time Brandon Routh didn't show up at all! I never skipped another cutscene again for fear of angering the blasted thing and being locked in another shitty level for all eternity. Up to the last world, Hot Fuzz, which begins with you needing to chase down a goose, which periodically freezes and the game won't read that you've caught it. The gimmick to this level is a CSI camera that you can use to solve crime scenes for items, but luckily none of Hot Fuzz's characters have unique powers, so...
Yes, I see now. This man's problem is that he is dead.
The other puzzles involve using security cameras to trigger electronics as programmed by someone who has no idea how cameras work. Past that, though, yeah, Hot Fuzz's levels are all basically just fights again as you run around beating up the leaders of the cult from the movie. Something very easy to do when you're playing as a busted character that can turn invisible.
You know, for an old man, it sure takes an eternity to beat you to death.
At first, I questioned why the game's creators double-dipped on Edgar Wright movies, and now I'm wondering why the Edgar Wright levels are the only ones that aren't obnoxious busy work. At long last, we have all the world crowns, and we learn the dark secret to Eddie's backstory. He's Freddy's dark side because Freddy's sad that he just lost his grandma, and he's a little bit anxious, and that somehow created Eddie. Although what's funny about Eddie is that his monologues kind of start to feel like meta commentary on the game and on Funko Pops themselves.
Undecided on what it wants to be. Factory or landfill, hidden away in your third-rate trinket factory.
You go to the heart of creation beneath the factory to fight Eddie once and for all, as he menacingly stands there, getting shot and barely fighting back. Freaking brilliant final boss! The only sucky part is that Eddie transforms into each of the different forms that you've used to defeat him, meaning this fight is 7 phases long and took me over half an hour! And each phase breaks for you to do an inventory puzzle, 2 of which repeat because the game forgot it has no actual mechanics. And when you defeat Eddie, he survives, and Freddy just gives him a hug and his own Funko Pop. That's it. If you really wanted your own Funko Pop, you should have just asked for one, dude. Those people will make figures out of anything. Once you finish the game, you can obviously revisit the worlds to use all the unlocked character powers to collect all the silver crowns. But we're still not done yet with the main content because we still have to go through the cameo levels. Each world includes an unlockable cameo level where you can find the entrance to an additional stage from yet another franchise, adding another whole 7 properties to this epic crossover. Naturally, without having to actually make full campaigns for any of them. And what franchises have cameo levels? Jaws, Back to the Future, The Mummy, the Brendan Fraser one, not the Tom Cruise one. Nope. Shaun of the Dead, triple dipping on Edgar Wright. And probably the only 2 series that you give a crap about, Invincible and Five Nights at Freddy's. Yeah, 2 of the biggest pop culture licenses around get one-off cameos to play second fiddle to Hot Fuzz and Dominion. And these have to be crazy fun bonus levels, right? If you have to go through all the trouble of tracking down these secret entrances. Nope! The Nope level is a massive open field where you have to search for and lug around crystals to set off laser switches. Drag yourself about a mile every time you need to switch characters for a required ability, and once you're done with this agonizing scavenger hunt, you have to do another scavenger hunt. You have to release 7 ropes over the town so that the UFO sucks up a tent, except every single rope requires you to track down a different unique item to release it, so you have to do 7 scavenger hunts and a brand new cluttered map in 10 minutes. I rage quit this level, dude. I looked at this and I said, nope! In the Back to the Future level, you have to track down 4 tires for the DeLorean, which is another scavenger hunt. Except because every cameo level still has its own collectibles, side quests, and pickups to unlock weapons and items, and you have no context for what core abilities the level was built around, you will constantly get confused as to which puzzles are mandatory and which ones lead to optional bullcrap. I gradually unraveled a puzzle where you hypnotize a guy to get a yellow crystal, lug that yellow crystal to the other side of the map, switch to a laser character, set off 2 switches to make platforms appear, and then switch to a teleporting character to cross the platforms before time runs out. The payoff for all that puzzle is a single silver crown. Didn't get me any closer to the end of this trash. Oh, and multiple mandatory puzzles require multiple batteries, but the level's rigged to only drop 2 batteries, so you have to backtrack and lug the 2 you're given back and forth across the stage. Shaun of the Dead is another of those escort missions where your escort can't even take damage, so at least it's linear, but it still breaks for obnoxious scavenger hunts. It feels like all the dev team's brain cells and talent went into the Mummy and Jaws stages, both of which are actual straightforward puzzle stages, followed by a boss fight. But what about the 2 biggest licenses in the game? The only 2 stages that might have actually sold this heap to an actual audience? The Invincible stage adapts the Season 1 finale, where Invincible gets his ass kicked in by Omni-Man. So the initial level instruction of help Invincible to defeat Omni-Man is a little head-tilting. You climb 2 buildings to activate brackets to hold up a building, and then you spend the entire rest of the level using CSI cameras to spawn keycards so that you can enter random stores and backtrack to grab crystals so that you can set off lasers to activate cameras to sort of vaguely reenact the Omni-Man fight out of order. In other words, it's another multi-stage scavenger hunt, the entire time being hounded by endlessly spawning Reanimen. Good thing Mark's face held up for like half an hour while I wandered around looking for all this crap. The Invincible stage ends with you needing to fight a kaiju by shooting its 5 weak points in, like, 30 seconds. Except it spawns non-stop shockwaves to stun you, and you have to be up close for your projectiles to do damage, and 2 of its weak points are behind it. And then the fight ends with that whole think meme, and Omni-Man flying off, completely missing the actual point of that scene, lending credence to the idea they only barely knew what half these franchises even were when adapting them. Oh, and I can play as Invincible now. Guess what special abilities he has? The Dilophosaur has super speed, He-Man has super strength, an X from Scott Pilgrim has unlimited stamina, and a random thing spawn has invulnerability. All powers that Invincible should have alongside being able to fly. So what special abilities does he get?
Nothing! Absolutely nothing!
And Omni-Man looks like his only power is setting off laser switches. Great. The Cylon Centurion has the laser and he deals double damage. Omni-Man can level entire planets within seconds single-handed, but is outmatched by a single robot goon. Ugh. And of course that leaves Five Nights at Freddy's, the most unique level in the game, but also one of the worst. It can't even play the series theme properly. This level you have to use a set of cameras to reveal a time token, and then run out into the restaurant to collect it and advance the clock. And it takes 6 tokens to finish the night.
Jesus Christ, this place is filthy! Just putting it out there, a chore wheel works wonders for the evil lair.
The trouble is you have to do this crap 5 times, and it gets harder as it goes along. Night 1, Chica sits in the kitchen sending out cupcakes that shut off your cameras, and they stay shut off until you go out and manually repair them. And the problem there is that Chica is a spiteful bitch that will attack the same camera multiple times in a row. So you run back to the terminal and find out that the camera you just fixed is out again. And shooting Chica to stun her barely works. Night 2 adds Bonnie, who's too slow to really pose a threat on his own, but it also adds endoskeletons that respawn constantly wherever they damn well please. By the end of the night, you can't even use the cameras because endos keep running up to attack you.
Oh my god! It's Bugs Bunny! I'll show you what's up, you fucking bunny piece of shit!
The last 2 nights, you can barely even play the damn game because Bonnie, Freddy, Foxy, and up to 4 endos are crawling up your ass at all times. You can't even use the camera without spending ages getting them all stunned and the endos all dead, and by the time you fend them all off, Chica's taken out all of your cameras. About the only nice thing I can say is they did a great job recreating the first game's environment, but they suck out everything that made the characters scary and replace it with annoyance. I'm glad this probably wasn't anybody's first exposure to Freddy's, because that impression would be that it's a broken, frustrating hunk of shit. Oh, and the level has an Easter egg where you can find some hidden binary code written on a wall. If you punch this code into a translator, it translates to, "Why did you look this up?" Bitch, why did you put it there in the first place? But wait, that's still not the end of the schizo crossover extravaganza. Each world has a hidden set of side quests where you can find a hidden character across multiple levels. And by doing this, you can unlock Knight Rider, Xena Warrior Princess, Megan, Chucky, Voltron, Mega Man, and I swear that I've seen Jack Torrance in the game online, but I can't find hide nor hair of how you unlock him. I won't lie, I could not be bothered to attempt a single one of these quests. The game's over, the characters are almost entirely interchangeable, I don't give a shit. If you haven't picked up on the big connective thread between the game's properties, the majority of them belong to Universal Studios. How much of a majority? 90%! 90% of the game's properties were Universal Studios at launch, and that figure only went down because the DLC added public figures and a promotion from Valve. The only Dark Horse inclusions are Mega Man and Invincible, and neither of them are exactly crossover virgins, if you catch my drift.
You're fragile. My son is invincible.
So it all makes sense now, doesn't it? The game's not only one giant commercial for Funko Pops, it's also one giant commercial that was probably paid for by Universal Studios. Probably why there are 2 DLC packs for Jurassic World Rebirth and 3 DLC packs for Wicked. And that's not even the end of the game's advertising. Each level has 3 collectibles to track down for an extra character. There's a piece of Foxo, there's Jurassic Park Amber, and the 3rd collectible in every level, I swear that I am not making this up. You find buckets of KFC fried chicken. There's a game-wide side quest to track down advertising for a fast food conglomerate. Yeah, nice try, but advertising a chicken place isn't going to work on me.
Pizza! We like pizza! Get out!
What other DLCs are there? Universal Monsters, characters from The Walking Dead, because Universal had a deal to make Walking Dead movies that fell apart around the game's release date. Oh, there's one DLC level, The Office. The Office DLC is a tiny map with rock-simple puzzles that is less than 10 minutes long. It's the shortest level in the game, and the whole story is, Dwight's got Pam tied to a chair, you free her, the end. They just slap a 20-minute time limit onto the stage to try and pretend they put an actual level here. You can't even play the level as other characters. I can't take Skeletor to HR. Welcome back to sensitivity training. I'd like you to use the word harassment in a sentence. Harassment a lot to me! Seriously, I paid $10 for a complete nothing of a DLC map that comes with 4 characters that have no abilities. Instead of patching this crap, they just kept adding more advertising. Over $50 of DLC, and it all adds virtually nothing! Funko Fusion is a draining experience. The bulk of the gameplay is unnecessary busy work that sucks out your soul. The combat has barely any mechanics to speak of, and most of the puzzles are just more walking! Basic quality of life improvements like navigation markers or swapping characters quickly are just gone. Like they thought the best way to differentiate from Lego was to suck at everything. And as easy as it is to knock the game for combining properties that nobody asked for, this exact game would still be terrible if I got to use a Blue Eyes White Dragon to fight Thanos. Most of the roster can't do anything fun or cool. So what's the point? Why adapt a ton of different properties and characters if you're just going to homogenize them to where everything's virtually identical? Alright, because that's what Funko does.